Hey, Struglines. In my last video, I demonstrated how you can run into issues triggering I'm sorry, not key events, but events on a page on a given element. And basically, like so, let me uncomment my code here. Let me change this back to pure AC. I run this, and notice the yellow here doesn't get updated, right? And if none of this makes sense, watch the previous video regarding event listeners. But so I demonstrated in the other video how you actually write the code, but what I want to do in this video is show you how I've built it into my syntax writer. And so before, these are the things you would do, right? But they no longer work on a lot of elements on a page because they have these event listeners and you need to dispatch them. And so you trigger, so you have my AutoHotkey syntax writer running. And you notice I've restructured it here now where this is called trigger action. And so this is where the old stuff was, clicking link on a page or click on text. These are all the old stuff I just put under no event listeners. And then of course, depending on which event you're trying to trigger, that's where you'll come down and you'll find the event you want. And so just as a refresher, I would come in here in this visual event tool. It's going to show me, so I can do a change, a key up, or a mouse up. And I don't necessarily know which one's going to be the right one, but let's go with key up because I've already done this and know that that's the one. But my point is you might have to try all of them. So I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to say trigger action, keyboard events, and key up. And now that's going to dump in a bunch of my code. Right now, here's the thing, right? So as I demonstrated before, creating this object, that's not gonna change. That'll be how it is. This, depending on what your pointer is, you might need to update that, right? But in all my code, it's always PWB, so that's a constant. This key up, in this keyboard event, that's what changes. But I store that in this keyboard object, which here I pass to it. And here, this is actually what's meaning. This is what I have a placeholder for here. It doesn't really matter where this happens, generally speaking. It can be before or after this happens. I just wanted to have a reminder to you guys. And then here, this is where the tricky part, right, is you copy this and replace it there because you need to be pointing to that same element. And now on this element, this regex ID element, after we set the value to practice, we're going to trigger, and let me put in a return down here. We're going to trigger the key up element. I should say dispatch it, right? Because it's going to go there. So the page is monitoring for a key up here. And oh, you know what? I better turn visual event off too. All right. So now I'm going to reload it. And when I run it, notice now it updates, right? Why is that? Because not only do we set the value, but we've created the object here. We've initialized it. And then we pass it as the object is a parameter to dispatch it, and that event listener on the page is listening for it, and it'll work. You know what? Just for fun, let's let me keep this. I'm gonna move this up here. I'm gonna get rid of my keyboard event, and I'm gonna try. What was it? Mouse up. Yes, mouse up and change. Let me see if I can grab these here. Try it again. There we go. Okay, so those are the three that are on this element. And so I'm going to turn that back off. I'm going to come back in here, and now we're going to try trigger action mouse events, mouse up. Oops, and my cursor was in the wrong spot. Trigger actions, mouse events, mouse up. Okay, so almost every event's virtually the same in the sense that you first create the event, and so here I'm creating a mouse up. This is the type, is mouse up. Actually, this mouse up lowercase is the type, but this is the object I'm going to store my mouse event in, and then I'm going to pass it. I'm going to initialize it and tell it, hey, we're working on a mouse up event, and then I'm going to pass it here. But again, I need to make sure, and well, I'll just try it here, and if it doesn't work, I'll move it. But this, we need to, oops, 2 decimal places. There we go. And now let's see if I change this to PRAC, if it's going to work. So look at that. So it did work. It still updates. So I'm using the mouse up event. And then my point earlier was this could have been down here, right? It probably even could have been after. Let's try that. In my limited experience so far, yeah, it doesn't necessarily matter where it is. The order of these three the creating of the object, the initializing, those two have to happen before you dispatch it, but the dispatch can probably happen a bit after or before. Honestly I would always do this approach of create the object. You know what? And this is perfectly fine up here. It doesn't really matter, right? Because you can set it, and then you're going to create the object, initialize it, and then dispatch the event. So you can either do that there, or you can do this like this. Also, what I haven't done thorough testing on it, but like on this page, and a couple other pages I was doing it, I created like a mouse event once, and then I kept dispatching it to the different elements, and that seemed to work fine. So you don't have to, once you create the element, you don't have to keep creating it over and over and over. You can just create it once, it looks like, and then keep dispatching to it. And just for fun, let's see if we can get the change event. Now the change event, you don't see it on, oh, hey, don't want to get rid of this guy. I need him. So the change event I put in a little bit different spot because there were some other things here. So trigger event, I put under miscellaneous, and I'm going to say change. And again, the structure pretty much stays the same. I'm going to borrow this here, and I'm going to put that right there. Get rid of that. Okay, now that. Let's see if that works. Not if I spell it wrong. You know what? Let me reload the page. Sometimes... What? Save. Oh, I hadn't saved it. Silly me. There we go. So, good. So my change event also worked. But those are examples. And in the previous video, I already closed it. Let me pop it back up. The events on the page, I just hit 50 pages at random. Not really random, they were my bookmarks, but I did a lot of social media stuff because I figured that's where a lot of people are doing things. And the click event was by far the most common, and it's probably even more common because I maxed out. I said, if there's more than 10, only record 10. But click was by far the most common, and then mouse over and key down, right, were somewhat common. But the first thing you might just try is just throwing in a click event on the element you're working on. And hopefully that helps. I'll push out my syntax writer here momentarily, and that hopefully will help a lot of people because it was always problematic for me. Thank you.